and welcome back to The Give and Go. I am your co-host Reynoso, here with my boy
Soltero. What's up, guys?
Costa Rica.
Los
Ticos are back in the World Cup, making their now 6th appearance. They've been here 5 times in the past. In 1990, they went out in the round of 16 versus, funnily enough, Czechoslovakia. 2002, group stage exit. 2006, group stage exit.
Shit.
2014, Magic.
Yeah.
Quarter-final appearance in 2014. Any thoughts on that? Oh, we already know, man.
Yeah,
we already know, man. We made so many videos on Costa Rica and that incredible run. You've mentioned about how connected you were to the team, your emotional connection, and just how crazy that run is. But even to me as a Mexico fan, like just seeing Costa Rica that year really made me rethink the sport of football. It was a moment of transition for me. I was like, holy fucking shit. What if they had beaten the Netherlands, man? What if? That would have shook the football world, man.
Oh, it would have.
In the modern era of football, to see Costa Rica in the Final Four.
God.
You good, bro? Yeah. 2018 group stage exit, where they had Brazil, Switzerland, and Serbia, which is the same group those 3 teams have this year with just an exchange of teams, with Costa Rica not being part of that. But in 2018, that was the group. And they went out in a really disappointing World Cup appearance. Yep. They find themselves back, though, by qualifying and getting 4th place in CONCACAF's qualification system, beating New Zealand in the Intercontinental Playoff in what was just a super emotional match. That game had World Cup energy written all over it. And
it was a great game.
Yeah, dude, great game. It gave us a sneak peek into what this World Cup is going to be like in Qatar. It also gave us another opportunity to just see those Costa Rica fans show their passion and love that they have for this team. They get drawn into Group E with European powerhouse Germany, the often prominent Japan, and then likewise, European giant as well, Spain.
Fucking hell of a group. Good God.
Imagine getting drawn into a group with 2 European teams, man. 2.
Yeah.
Man, in this era? Good Lord, man. Good Lord. And so that's Costa Rica, man. That's their outlook going into this tournament. They are headed by Luis Suarez, coaching up this squad to a World Cup appearance. Costa Ricans are hoping that maybe there's some level of magic to be attained at this World Cup that could rival the incredible run that they had in 2014. The biggest question is, can they do it? Can they achieve that? But before we get into that, your thoughts on this Costa Rican team?
Analyzing Costa Rica is very weird for me. It's a very weird experience because I have a very, very passionate tie to this team. Obviously, finding them in 2011 when they had La Volpe coaching them, and I saw talent all over this squad, bro, at the time, obviously. Brian Ruiz was just popping off at Fulham, and then he would just continue his rise to be an absolute baller of an attacking midfielder. 18, 17-year-old, I forget now, Joel Campbell coming on the scene.
It's a baby.
Baby Campbell getting an immediate contract to Arsenal, which is crazy for a Central American player. That's absolutely insane. Carlos Vela, Mexican. Yeah. A Mexican was able to do that. But for Joel Campbell from Costa Rica, it's so different. Informed players like Celso Borges line up this team. And then, of course, Keylor Navas at the time plying his trade in Spain and would eventually go on to be one of the best keepers in Europe, winning trophy after trophy with Real Madrid, and then continuing that insane resume by going to PSG, which he's still there. Playing a substitute role now, but still an incredible goalkeeper. Since I do watch Costa Rican football very closely, and I have for the last 12 years now, I really only see one thing happening for this Costa Rican side, and I've seen it at every World Cup. In 2014, as bizarre as it sounds, I had Costa Rica going to the quarterfinals.
And I want to vouch for that because I can
I know
see
people
just going, what the? No fucking way. This is before the give and go. This is before so much shit happened in our lives. I remember you being hella annoying. And I wouldn't give you this credit unless it was true. Because I hate giving you credit. You were being hella annoying the build-up to that tournament. Telling me all this bullshit about Costa Rica, man. Telling me that they were going to be better than Mexico. And I was super, super patriotic at that time.
Yeah, I remember that.
I hated hearing that shit. And then they did what they did. I wish we had the show back then.
That'd be crazy,
so people could so you could have that fucking information, man, or that evidence. Yeah. But no, it's true. It is true.
For me, it was just so apparent, though, at the time. I saw Costa Rica as a complete team. Every single player was in form, in their prime, playing at a very high level. X factors, for example, like in Joel Campbell. And they just had an incredible chemistry together, man. You could see it when they played. Yes, they only played mainly against CONCACAF teams, but the way that they were beating CONCACAF rivals, man, was something that I had never seen. Even Mexico, who dominate the region.
They were slapping them up,
yeah,
bro. That's the thing.
They were knocking them around, bro.
Yeah.
They really were. And I've only ever seen maybe European teams or like an Argentina beat Mexico the way that Costa Rica were able to play against them. And I thought that was so impressive. And I knew that meant something. And 2014, the reason why I thought it was so apparent too is because England and Italy, even though people just really look at the name, and I know England had like Wayne Rooney and Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard at the time, sure, but England never convinced at that time, especially during that time. And they were notorious for always doing poorly at World Cups, so I predicted the same thing. It was an easy prediction. And the Italians, even though people had them playing well, you could see the Italians had no clue what they were doing out on that pitch, man. An awful time in 2010, and then 2014, I did not see that team in any good light whatsoever. A feisty Uruguay team, but I knew Costa Rica were better than them, especially at the time. So it was easy for me to see Costa Rica get out of that group. And then from there, I knew they were going to have either Greece, the Ivory Coast, or Japan, or something like that in the next stage. And those, for me, that was very beatable. Very beatable. And then from there is either going to be the Netherlands or Mexico. And I knew that was beatable too, even though I know Netherlands were good. But remember, going into that tournament, the Netherlands were not touted to go as far as they ended up going. That ended up being an insane game, 0-0. Obviously, Costa Rica losing on penalties. But I remember...
But hold on, we're always... Imagine the matchup of two CONCACAF teams in the quarterfinal. Yeah. Regardless of who would have won, imagine that matchup, man. That would have broke CONCACAF. That would be the height of CONCACAF right there.
Dude, two CONCACAF teams fighting for a semifinal position.
Yeah. One team being assured
be in the
semifinal. That to me just boggles my mind that possibility almost happened, and then Mexico fucked it. Rather, Netherlands. Robin, man, fucked it, man. God, man,
that actually
boggles my mind thinking about that.
Yeah. What if Mexico didn't have to go through those tribulations of that no era penal situation against the Netherlands? I have the butterfly effect in my mind in the sense that, like, let's say Mexico did go to the quarterfinals, Costa Rica would have lost.
Mexico's winning that. Yeah.
That's the thing. What I'm saying is that, like, Costa Rica, the only way they could succeed if Mexico lost.
Yeah. I wonder if a mental thing would have came into play or history or some shit. I wonder. But I also think a lot about that matchup that Costa Rica had against Mexico in Costa Rica. It was Costa Rica literally stepping on the throats of Mexico and like killing the person in cold blood.
Yeah.
Like they didn't hold back.
No.
They didn't show any mercy.
And they dazzled too.
Yeah. They had a fucking show, an audience watching. Yeah. And it was like they murdered Mexico, but then Mexico was just given this like revival stone by the U.S.
Yes,
and managed to get back into tournament. But let's not forget, they pulled the fucking trigger on Mexico and took their lives that game.
They did. They killed them. They killed Mexico. Them.
But by some magical
grace of God.
The grace of God, they got a second life. I'll never forget what Costa Ricans that day looked Mexicans in the eyes and said, "Fuck you." It was incredible to see that because no other Central American team has ever done that.
Never.
Ever. And it hasn't done it since either.
Exactly.
Like, it's crazy.
Exactly. That actually is crazy because now that completes that narrative. If they would have played each other in the quarterfinal, it would have been a full circle. That would have been insane.
Oh my God.
But it's funny because only CONCACAF people would know that. Yeah. Only CONCACAF people.
That's like a CONCACAF trivia nugget.
It's a nugget. Europeans would have no clue what was going on, man. They'd have no clue.
They probably wouldn't even watch the game.
No, hell no. They'd be like, we'll see who goes to the semis. Holy shit, that's depressing. But in the exact opposite manner, going into 2018, I saw this Costa Rican team decline like no other. I think they peaked in 2014, obviously, maintained a little bit of that form in 2015, but after 2015, basically the Copa America Centenario, ever since that point going into 2018, it was just a steady and drastic and depressing decline for this Costa Rican national team. And I remember when they were drawn in that group with Brazil, Serbia, and Switzerland, every single pundit, especially on this CONCACAF side, especially in the States, were like, I think Costa Rica is going to get second behind Brazil.
Because they were
carried
away with what happened.
They just got carried away with what happened 4 years ago. And I'm just like, have y'all seen them play? They're going to finish last, which I predicted. And I remember I told everybody, I was like, yeah, Costa Rica, because they had remembered my 2014 prediction. So they're like, oh, what do you think about Costa Rica this year? I was like, oh, they're gonna finish last in the group, and they're like, no, they're gonna get second or whatever. I'm like,
dude, I even see it now in YouTube comments. People are saying Costa Rica's got that underdog mentality. I'm like, bro, it's not just, it's way more than that, brother.
Yeah, the thing is, they did have that in 2014, and I used that. Almost kind of like how Atletico did between 2012 and 2016. That underdog label is what Costa Rica used to fuel them against every single opponent that they faced, because on paper, for the most part, Costa Rica were the inferior team. But if you had seen them play, especially at 2014, and in that buildup, you knew they were not the inferior team. In the buildup to 2018, man, I only saw failure for this Costa Rican team, because they were just declining. Every player was kind of leaving that prime years of age, like 27, 28. They were now like 30, 31, 32. And they had no replacements in those really effective positions at what made them good in 2014. They still haven't replaced Cristian Bolaños in my eyes, although maybe they have with this new 20-year-old Juicen Bennett, which we'll talk about in a bit. But that's still to be seen, because Bolaños, when in his prime, man, was an incredible player. Dazzling, just dribbling past players, creating, doing whatever he could. Really good on the ball, a fantastic penetrator. They haven't really been able to replace that. And the positions that they haven't replaced because they're still playing these 35-year-old, 36-year-old players that were playing 8 years ago, man. Yeah. And so it is really weird for me to see this Costa Rican team here again at 2022, because I only see what I see when I see Costa Rica. Like, I can't be hopeful like I can with other teams. And it gets really weird for me. That's what I'm saying. Like, kind of like how with the Netherlands, I was anti-Netherlands, right? In my bias. For Costa Rica, naturally, I want to be pro-Costa Rica in my bias. So I have this weird juxtaposition, this weird internal conflict, because my heart says, I love this goddamn country and I love this team no matter what. And it'll always be like that, always. 40 years from now, I'll still be talking about 2014, because that team was special, man. And this generation has been special. But remember, I always try to remove myself from any sort of bias. So when I see this Costa Rican team, I see them as one of the weakest teams at this tournament, man. And in a team that I don't know if
So does Vegas, bro. One of the worst odds to win the tournament.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me, man, because when I see this 11, all I see is the old guard, the team that took them to glory in 2014, sprinkled with a couple of new faces, but faces that are nowhere near the level that the Costa Ricans were in 2014. So the result that you get, man, is just, in my opinion, an average team. And when you're in the World Cup, most teams are above average. Yeah, so if you're average, you're one of the worst teams there. And it sucks. But for me, that is the true reality of this Costa Rican national team. And I'll give you a fun little anecdote here. When I went to Costa Rica to watch the Grand Final, Cartaginés against Alajuelense back in June, I was like, okay, let me see what Alajuelense or Cartaginés have to offer. Like, let me see just Costa Rican players against Costa Rican players for the most part. Obviously, add in a Cuban or whatever, and they're on the pitch too. But for Alajuelense, the players that this club relied on was Brian Ruiz, Celso Borges, and Johan Venegas. The three players that starred for them 8 years ago in 2014. And I'm like, God damn, this is not only a problem at the international level, this is trickled down into Costa Rican club football.
The league should do something about it,
The league should be doing something about it, but I guess just
limiting their minutes, like Griezmann, like they can only play one half. Like we gotta make progress in this league and in this country.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta develop other players. And I remember this other player, Aaron Suarez, who actually has been called up a couple of times by Suarez, by Luis Fernando Suarez. So active. Aaron Suarez got the ball like once every 3 minutes, man. He was just constantly getting the ball. And I think he's like right or left winger, so he's always up there. But his productivity was poor, man. Really, really bad. And that's the thing. That's why Alajuelense at the time when they were down against Cartaginés had to rely on the old guard, because these new faces, these younger Costa Rican players, simply just cannot cut it. And Venegas, I think he's like, 31, 32 at this point, he was the best player out on that pitch. The best one. Just technically, from a technical point of view. And I'm just like, damn, there's not like a 21-year-old Costa Rican right now at Alajuelense or a Cartaginés that's like good, that can come into this national team and inject some sort of energy. There's only one player that I can say that about. There's only one. And when you look at the scope of this Costa Rican team over this last 10 years, one over a decade.
That's the thing.
That's depressing.
2014, this incredible run happened 8 years ago.
Yes.
Like the kids from then should be developing by now, man. Like where's the evidence? Where's the effects, the after effects of such an incredible World Cup run?
Yeah.
It's nowhere to be seen.
And that's what's crazy because it got me thinking. I was literally thinking about this a week ago. Even before I knew we were talking about Costa Rica, man, I was like, dude, whatever they did like 30 years ago when Celso Borges, Brian Ruiz, Keylor Navas, Giancarlo Gonzalez, when they were all like in their teens, whatever they did to them, man, worked out crazy, bro. The skill level that those players reached, Yeltsin Tejeda at the time too, just coming through, playing in France. It's incredible what that specific generation of Costa Rican football has achieved, but it just simply has stopped.
Yeah.
It has not continued whatsoever. And that is ultimately why I have this Costa Rican team as being probably one of the worst teams here, man, because you got to develop. You have to have new faces. The thing is, I think, and I'll go a step further here. The reason why Costa Rica are at this tournament is because of that veteran experience and because the rest of Central America failed. Honduras had a perfect opportunity to qualify,
Oh my
bro.
God!
They had a perfect opportunity.
I hear about Honduras, man.
A weak Costa Rica, a Panama side that were trying to figure things out. El Salvador just simply couldn't cut it.
Nope.
So this was Honduras's perfect chance to return to the World Cup, and they had good players: Romel Kyoto, Anthony Lozano, Albert Ellis, man. Just to name a few up top, bro. That was the team that was going to make Honduras come back to the World Cup. And they botched it bad, bro. Even Jamaica, man. Like, it's tough for island teams.
Jamaica,
It is tough for island teams to be successful in CONCACAF. And I understand the resources just are not as attainable as it is for Central America, or especially when you compare it to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. It is just simply nowhere near the same. So I always kind of have a little bit of sympathy when I look at these Caribbean nations because it's very tough for them. But Jamaica still had a good chance too because Panama just ultimately they kind of crashed
Antonio,
out, bro.
man.
I know.
You gotta do something with that, man.
I know. That's
Andre
the thing,
Blake. Like, come on, man. You got names.
Figure it out. And that's the thing. That Jamaican team was just too inconsistent. We could talk about that in a different pod. Jesus Christ.
They were ass.
They were
just
ass,
man. That team was bad.
They were
I hated
so
watching Jamaica
bad.
this World Cup qualification.
Oh,
man.
yeah,
They
me
were
too.
ass.
Me too, bro. They were really ass, bro. When you look at Costa Rica, if you haven't watched CONCACAF, I guarantee you the first thing you'll say is, oh, Costa Rica's good.
Yep.
Because, they qualified. This is their third World Cup in a row, which actually is incredible. But the reason why they're here is because the rest of Central America failed, and they have solely relied on the veteran experience to get them here. And the thing is, when you look at what they don't have, I don't blame them for relying on their veterans, man. You have to. You have to rely on Brian Ruiz coming off the bench. You have to rely on Borges being the beacon of light in that midfield to just settle everybody down. Yeah. And you have to rely on Costa Rican GOAT Joel Campbell to provide for you, to ultimately get that crazy goal against New Zealand. Ended up being the difference that got them into this World Cup in the first place, man. They've had to rely solely on their
Keylor Navas
veterans.
making fucking spectacular saves.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it doesn't end there in qualification. In this group, where you have a Japan that's playing very well right now, and then obviously world beaters in Spain and Germany, this looks impossible for Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And I just can't, being such a big fan of this country, of this nation, of this team, I can't even begin to try to be hopeful. I have to be realistic, man. I have to be very realistic when it comes to this, because otherwise I'd just be lying to myself, man. So that's why maybe I'm coming off a little harsh, but I want to give reason to the harshness, because I do think it's justified. I really do. When you look at this 11, it's just a bunch of old guard and then some new faces that simply just can't cut it.
If there was like a divisions to the World Cup, Costa Rica would run the third division of the World Cup.
They run it.
They'd run it, man. They'd run it because there is enough experience and talent there.
There is.
But in that first division, brother,
oh god,
they ain't making that out the goddamn group. They ain't getting a point, man. Look, that Japan-Costa Rica game is going to be a banger, bro. Like, seeing who the fuck gets a point out of this match. Yeah. When I do these World Cup deep dives, I always try to write out the starting 11 that I predict, who I see for this specific situation. Luis Suarez, who I see him starting. And usually amongst that process, I realize like how much depth the team has. You know, I'm like running the striker and like how there's two more striking options. Center backs, there's like 4 other center backs that can be picked. Wing backs, full backs, there's other options. For Costa Rica starting 11, bro, I have 8 players. I don't even have a starting 11, man.
Shit.
That's how little depth they have, bro.
It's so little depth.
That's nothing, man. There's nothing to work here. And the most secure players that I have starting are the ones that have so much experience playing for them. But these other names like Contreras, bro.
Yeah.
Venegas, Torres. It's just new names that just don't provide any sort of hope, any sort of beacon of light, as you mentioned, that can get even an outsider like me excited. It really is just looking dire for this team, but I always think about the other angle, you know, the optimistic angle.
Sure.
What could happen if this team finds their form of 8 years ago? What could happen if things just go right for them? When I run that process through my head, it sucks that they were drawn into possibly the hardest group they've ever been drawn into, bro.
That's the thing.
This is a Spanish team that is capable of going to the semifinal, potentially winning it, dark horses of the tournament, maybe even title contenders at this point. Germany, I could say the same exact thing for them. Top 8 side in the world. And then Japan, who we never really know. X factor when it comes to them. They show that they were super feisty and aggressive against Belgium, nearly upsetting them. And it's 4 years since that. Have they improved? We'll see. But it's still a quality team that hasn't dipped as much as this Costa Rican side has. And when we look at what had to happen for them to get here, the process they had to go through, bro, even that New Zealand game, they had so much go their way, man. So much, man. A crazy bounce in the box that just fell in that bottom right corner and got them the goal. And then after that, it was all New Zealand. Just nonstop attack. And it took Costa Rica having the defensive game of their lives, the defensive luck as well.
And luck, a little bit of luck.
Chris Wood looked like a goddamn Ballon d'Or winner in that fucking game. He was everywhere, so dangerous. Bro, they're going to be facing tougher players in this tournament, better quality.
Way tougher,
it's going to be some tough games for this team. So if you're Costa Rican, I think the most you can hope for here is just a respectable showing, just not to get blown out. Maybe being able to just lose 1-0, 2-1, perhaps just staying in games for a longer time than what's expected. But in terms of them getting out of the group, since we're hearing predictions now, I don't see them getting out. I have them in 4th place, and I don't even see 3rd for them. I really don't.
Yeah, I only have them finishing in 4th as well. This group is so tough, as you just said, man. Because that is what's interesting. If I did have to be optimistic, right? The only thing I really can say is my exact criticism of them. The fact that they have these very experienced veterans. They've relied on them for this entire cycle. They're going to have to rely on them once again. That is the only optimistic point I can really give this Costa Rican side, in the sense that, like, maybe they won't get blown out because Borges is going to be in the center of that midfield, right? Because Calvo and Duarte, yes, are maybe a little past it age-wise, but are still good center backs, right? They're still pretty solid. Oviedo is not the same fullback that he once was, not even close, but he's been playing football his entire life at, 30, 34 years of age, or whatever, how old he is now. So he's got a certain amount of IQ that a younger Costa Rican fullback just simply does not have, right? You bring in Brian Ruiz off the bench at, 39 years of age or whatever, however old he is now. He's very, very old. At least he has the IQ of playing at the highest level. I think that does actually mean something. And that, I think, can be the optimistic point that you can take for this Costa Rican side to at least be competitive, because that is the one thing I will say. I don't think Costa Rica will get blown the fuck out. I do. I
don't know. I might be thinking a little more pessimistically.
Well, but blown out, I mean like 4-0 every game.
Right, like Panama and fucking...
Right. I think they will lose probably each game by like 2 goals at the very least. And they'll probably be... Maybe that first game they'll lose like 5-0, possibly. If it's against Spain or Germany. I don't know who they play first. I don't. The only thing that they can use are their veterans. And there's 2 other minor optimistic factors that you can include when you look at this Costa Rican squad as a whole. Joel Campbell, obviously, he's only 30 years old, so he's still maybe towards the end of his prime. But he's still obviously a very good player. He's going to be possibly the best Costa Rican player on the pitch skill-wise and also in effectivity and his output. Because Campbell is, and I've done a video on him before, Campbell is the GOAT of Costa Rica. In that 2014 run, he was absolutely incredible. And he's still a really good player, honestly. Playing at León, had a stint with Monterrey, back at León now. Very good player in Liga MX. And for me, that does translate to international stage. I really do think it does. And the other minor factor that you can look at, and maybe this is just a little light for the future, is Jewison Bennett. The
Sunderland product, no?
Yes, yeah. Just got signed by Sunderland, I think, a couple months ago, or at least in the offseason before the season started. And looking at him play, mainly just in Costa Rican national team play, he's good. He's actually pretty good. I actually see a lot of like young Joel Campbell in him in the sense that like he's a penetrator, loves to dribble, and has zero fear. Like zero fear. I think he's actually going to have a lot of fun at this tournament because he's going to get to go against these Spanish and German defenses. And that's something that obviously he doesn't get, whether he's in Sunderland or on loan in these lower divisions. He's not going to get anywhere near this type of level, bro.
Yeah.
So for him, just to show off his skills, even if it doesn't work, I think he's going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, try to take on Carvajal.
Exactly,
one-on-one,
bro.
man.
Exactly.
Ooh. Gotta get him excited, man.
Yeah. And for me, it really isn't just his energy levels of why Bennett is good, because he actually is pretty good. When you do see him play, he actually has a lot of skill. And he's, again, like I said, a really good dribbler. But I think it does end there. He has a lot to learn, I think, when it comes to being an elite European-style offense player. He has a lot to learn, because right now, I don't really think he's effective off the pass. He's not a good crosser. And at least in the positions that he plays, he's not really set up to score a lot of goals, man. So I think you'll just see a lot of entertainment from Bennett. And I think in those first 20 minutes, he's going to be really good. But after that, he's going to get figured out, and then it's just going to peter off. Overall, though, Costa Rica, 4th place. Nothing else for me, man.
Dude, I think one of the worst things to rely on in a tournament in football is on a team that's solely composed of veterans. Because I think the one thing football has taught me is that if you're going to have veterans on the team, you have to have a mix, an influx of really good, promising young talent. I bring up, for example, Real Madrid last year winning the Champions League final.
Ooh,
you could say that Modric is a little old, that Cruz has been around a little long, Casemiro even, that the trio has run themselves out, but what do you have? You have an incredibly exciting young talent, Vinicius Jr. up front, Rodrigo, who's capable of just being an X factor as well, Valverde, who can just do what those older players can't do when it comes to speed and athleticism.
Yeah.
Costa Rica has none of that, man. It's just veterans. It's just veterans. Yeah. And so when you compare that even to like a team like Cameroon, I'd actually much rather be in Cameroon's situation going to the World Cup, because at the very least you have a couple players that are in their prime that have the potential to just have a tournament of their lives. Yes. That have the potential to just go the fuck off and level and match the quality of these really great teams. I'm not saying Cameroon is actually going to do that, but I am saying that there's a potential. There's a potential.
There's a true potential.
And with a team composed of vets that are old, that have shown that they don't really have it anymore to compete at this level, it's just a little depressing, man. Credit to them for making it to this tournament.
Credit to him, man. It's really respectable. 3 World Cups in a row. That's tough to do, I think, for any nation, man. Costa Rica, especially from a Central American country, that is insane, honestly. If you look at the scope of what Costa Rica has done over these last 8 to 10 years, it is something that we might not ever see again from the Central American region, or at least see for a very, very long time. So for that is incredibly respectable. And obviously hats off to Costa Rica for that.
That is Costa Rica, folks. Let us know. What do you think? Are they going to prove us wrong? Are they going to get first in this group, second? Or are they finishing 4th like how the Give and Go predicts? Let us know your thoughts. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and stay updated with us as we continue making more deep dives as we head in closer to the World Cup. It's so, so close. And remember, once the World Cup comes, we're going to be posting so much content, man. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.